She won't forget the man who never pleaded for her notice. She won't forget the man who remained composed when she probed his resolve. And she will never forget the man who embodied quiet confidence. Women encounter countless men throughout their lives. Witty ones, charismatic ones, even affluent ones. But the one who lingers in her thoughts, the one she recalls long after he's departed, is the man who behaves distinctly. Not more vocally, not more desperately, distinctively. So, allow me to illustrate precisely what that man does and why psychology suggests she'll retain his imprint like an indelible shadow. 1. The serene composure. Consider this. A woman directs a hint of defiance your way. Perhaps she delays her response to your message for hours. Perhaps she exhales heavily at dinner and insists, nothing's wrong. Even though her expression conveys the contrary. Most men react with alarm. They ruminate excessively. They attempt to remedy her disposition instantly, as if it's their duty. But here's the reality. She doesn't retain those men. They merge into obscurity. The man she never forgets is the one who maintains equanimity. The one who resists being drawn into her turbulence. He sits across the table, meets her gaze, and his demeanor conveys, I'm unshaken. That composure is potent because it seems uncommon. Psychology terms this emotional regulation. But truly, it's simply self-mastery. When a man can govern his own feelings rather than being swayed by hers, it establishes a profound distinction. She senses she's probing the depths, sending minor ripples his way. But he's the vast sea. He remains immovable. This doesn't imply he's distant or devoid of feeling. In fact, it's the reverse. He can still smile, still attentively listen, still demonstrate compassion, but he doesn't surrender himself to her fluctuations. He doesn't pursue her validation as if it were essential. That equilibrium between engagement and self-mastery is indelible. Envision this. A woman's endured a taxing day. She returns home with edged remarks, curt responses. One man internalizes it. He disputes, elevates his tone, insists on explanations. Another man disregards her entirely, departs in quiet withdrawal. Both of those men fade from recall. But the man she remembers. He attentively listens without escalating, avoids mirroring her disorder, and subtly prepares her a cup of tea. No sermon, no frenzy, just steadfast presence. Why does it endure with her? Because it instills a sense of security. Security isn't merely about secure doors or financial stability. For a woman, security encompasses emotions. Can she rely on you not to unravel when challenges arise? Can she unwind knowing you won't falter under initial strain? This is why women cling to the recollection of composed men. Even years on, she might reflect, he never elevated his voice. He never faltered. He was simply reliable. That reliable aura etches a lasting mark. So, here's the essence. If you aspire to be indelible, don't enter her tempest. Be the steadfast point. Don't over-justify. Don't debate. Don't engage in emotional pull and tug. Instead, inhale deeply, remain centered, and allow her to witness that nothing can unsettle you. She won't vocalize it, but inwardly she'll sense it. And believe me, she'll never forget it. 2. The man who departs when necessary. Now, let's discuss something that truly imprints on a woman's recollection. The man who withdraws when respect is absent. Most men cannot manage it. They persist even when overlooked, mistreated, or marginalized. They plead for another opportunity, aspiring to reclaim her favor. But the man who discerns when to depart, he's the one she repeatedly contemplates. Departing isn't about cruelty. It's not retribution. It's about self-regard. Reflect on it. When you decline to remain where you're undervalued, you're declaring through actions what many men fail to articulate verbally: my worth exceeds your endorsement. And here's the irony. That decision inverts the authority balance. Rather than you pursuing her, she's left with unresolved inquiries. Why didn't he persist more? Why didn't he require me? Those notions revolve in her mind long after your absence. Psychology labels this the Zeigarnik effect. We retain incomplete narratives more than resolved ones. When you depart without pleading, you transform into her unresolved narrative. Imagine two men. One implores, please don't abandon me. I'll transform. He sends lengthy messages, inundates her communications, lingers outside her residence. The other states serenely, I comprehend. If this isn't suitable for you, I won't impose it. Then he retreats, vanishes, advances with his existence. Guess which one she'll ponder at 3 a.m. months hence? Not the supplicant. The man who valued himself sufficiently to depart. Women frequently assess men unwittingly. They assess to determine if he'll sacrifice himself for her. And the man who cannot depart fails that assessment. But the man who does, he secures an enduring place in her recollection because he demonstrated something unique. Fortitude without clamor. It's not about detachment either. A man who departs can still feel profoundly. He can still cherish. But affection without self-regard isn't affection. It's servitude. And no woman forgets the man who cherished her sufficiently to remain authentic to himself. So don't dread losing her. Dread losing yourself. Because the man who can depart even when it aches is the man she cannot expunge. 3. The man who offers without tallying. Here's something most men misconstrue. They believe offering involves extravagant displays. Purchasing presents, settling expenses, escorting her on lavish excursions. Certainly, those actions gain attention, but they don't render you indelible. What renders a man indelible is how he offers without anticipating reciprocity. Contemplate it. Most offering is contingent. I'll provide this for you, but you must value me. Or, I bestowed this, now you owe me endearment. That's not offering. That's negotiation. And women discern the distinction. The man she never forgets is the one who offers because it's inherent to him, not to manipulate her response. He attends when she recounts her day. He observes her fatigue and prepares a modest meal. He extends his jacket in the chill, not to accumulate favor, but because it's instinctive for him. These minor deeds may appear routine, but they bear significance. Why? Because they're uncommon. Most men either exaggerate, attempting to purchase affection, or they maintain a concealed ledger in their thoughts. But authentic offering feels liberated. And that liberation causes her recollection to adhere to you like adhesive. Envision this. A woman recalls the individual who once astonished her with blooms. Not due to the blooms, but because he recalled her preferred variety after she mentioned it casually weeks prior. She recalls the man who remained awake late to assist her preparation. Not because he sought something, but because he was invested. Years later. She may not recall the costly presents, but she'll recall those modest, altruistic instances. Psychology indicates we are predisposed to remember sentiments more than specifics. She remembers how you caused her to feel. If your offering made her feel acknowledged, secure, and nurtured without obligations, that's indelible. But don't misunderstand. This doesn't entail being accommodating to a fault. Offering without tally isn't equivalent to surrendering your self-regard. It's about purpose. You offer liberally, but you also recognize your worth. You don't seek affirmation after offering. You don't prompt her, recall when I did this for you. And because you don't require acknowledgement, she experiences it more profoundly. She reflects he sought nothing in return. He simply was invested. That form of aura endures with her lifelong. So, here's the insight. Be the man who offers from fortitude, not from apprehension. Because the man who offers without tallying is the man she never forgets. 4. The man who preserves his enigma. Now, let's address enigma candidly. Women may appreciate focus, but they don't forget the man who doesn't disclose everything prematurely. The man who allows room, the man who prompts her curiosity. See, when you unveil everything immediately, your anxieties, your aspirations, your past, you believe you're fostering intimacy, but you're actually concluding the narrative before it commences. There's nothing remaining for her to explore, and what's completely familiar becomes assumed. The indelible man retains a portion, not manipulatively, just organically. He doesn't justify every choice. He doesn't divulge excessively. He doesn't respond instantly with extensive replies. He provides sufficient to make her feel acknowledged, but not enough to complete the enigma. Psychology elucidates this via curiosity gaps. Our minds yearn for resolution, but when resolution is absent, we fixate. A man who maintains slight enigma resides in her thoughts without cost. She ponders his whereabouts, his activities, his reflections. And that pondering sustains her engagement. View it like a film. The ones you recall aren't those that clarified everything in the initial 10 minutes. The ones you recall sustained anticipation. They disclosed elements gradually. They left you reflecting after the conclusion. That's how a man should exist, disclosing, but never entirely disclosed. Imagine she messages you, "What are you up to?" One individual responds immediately, "Nothing. Just reclining on the sofa viewing television." Conclusion of narrative. Forgettable. Another responds, "Just addressing something significant." That minor ambiguity ignites interest. She inquires what it is, she probes. He reveals a bit more, but not everything. That's how the recollection expands. Enigma isn't about deception. It's about rhythm. It's about permitting her to uncover you in strata. Because when a woman senses there's always more to reveal, she cannot forget you. And here's the revelation. Enigma also demonstrates fortitude. A man who doesn't divulge excessively is a man at ease with himself. He doesn't require explaining everything to be accepted. He permits quietude to perform its role. That quietude is alluring. So don't hesitate to retain. Don't hasten to occupy every pause. Allow her to incline forward. Allow her to ponder. Because when she does, you'll remain in her thoughts long after your departure. So here's what you must retain. A woman may encounter 1,000 visages in her life. Men who exert excessively. Men who speak excessively. Men who offer with conditions. And she will forget them. One by one. They diminish from her recollection like script on sand. But she never forgets the man who distinguished himself, the man who conducted himself uniquely. She never forgets the man who remained composed when others lost command. She never forgets the man who possessed the fortitude to depart when his regard wasn't honored. She never forgets the man who offered from his essence, not from his apprehensions. And she never forgets the man who retained sufficient enigma to sustain her interest. Why? Because these qualities are scarce. And what is scarce becomes remembered. Reflect on it. If you review your own existence, the individuals who persist in your thoughts aren't always the most vocal. They're the ones who evoked a distinct sensation. They possessed a form of aura that didn't impose itself upon you. It simply persisted. That's precisely how it operates in female psychology. And this is where so many men err. They believe being indelible involves demonstration. More presence, more dialogue, more focus, more pursuit. But in reality, it's the inverse. It's not about exceeding. It's about moderating, but with profound purpose, composure instead of alarm, regard instead of pleading, offering instead of negotiating, enigma instead of excessive disclosure. These are the attributes that inscribe your identity into her recollection. And here's the elegance. You don't need to feign any of this. You don't need strategies or scripts. You simply need to develop into the kind of man who doesn't require endorsement to feel worthy. When you exist like that, when you embody like that, she perceives it. And even if she departs, even if existence leads you both elsewhere, her thoughts will return to you. Perhaps years later, perhaps when she's solitary at night, perhaps when she encounters another man and senses something absent, she'll remember. Because indelible men are not recalled for their words. They're recalled for how they conducted themselves. So embody that man. Not for her, not for anyone else, but for yourself. And when you do, believe me, she'll never forget you.